Hi friends, and welcome to another video. In today's tutorial I'm going to show you how to make this super cute pumpkin hat. This will be in a child size, fitting heads with a 21-inch circumference head. If you want any size from 0 months up to toddler, you can find videos for that here on my YouTube channel. All the different sizes have their own video. The only difference is you will need to modify at the very top for your stem. So just make the last couple rows in brown and the rest of it in orange. Modify for your stem and you're good to go. But I'm going to show you a full video of how to make the toddler size here on camera with you guys. You will need some orange yarn. I do not have orange with me. I like using Bravo worsted weight for my beanies and amigurumis, but I do have this lovely peach color. It is called Seashell, and that is what I will use to make my funky pumpkin hat. You will need a tiny bit of brown for your pumpkin stem. You will need a little bit of green yarn for your pumpkin vine. This is Bravo worsted weight yarn from We Crochet in the color avocado. You will need a tapestry needle, a pair of scissors, an H 5.0 millimeter crochet hook. This is Clover & More, which is my favorite hook brand to work with of all time. You will also need a tiny smidgen of polyfill for the inside of your stem. If you don't have polyfill, you can use cotton balls and break them up if you need to. We're going to be starting with our orange yarn and our hook, so you can put everything else to the side for now. And I like to pull from the center, so I just find my own. Usually I have yarn bomb, but we'll see. There she is. This might be a little fast for brand new beginners, but this is the easiest crochet pattern ever, and if you need slower instructions, you can check out all of the other sizes. I go through that very, very slowly, so check that out. We're going to start by making a slip knot, and then chaining 10. Then we're going to single crochet back down our chain, starting in the second chain from our hook. And we're going to put 9 single crochets. 1, 2. You may notice that I yarn under instead of over like most people. That's just how I taught myself. It gives my single crochet stitches a slight twist and makes my tension slightly tighter, so it makes my work a little bit smaller. So if your hat comes a weird size compared to my hat, it might be because I am twisting my single crochets, and you can either try that or adjust your hook. After we do our 9 single crochet stitches, we're going to chain 1 and turn our work. Then we're going to single crochet 9 more times in the back bumps only this time. So instead of going here under both loops where we would normally put our single crochet, we're just going to go right here into the back bump for 9 single crochets. And 9, chain 1 and turn our work. Now for rows 3 through 50, 50, we are just going to single crochet 1 time in the back bump, chain 1 and turn our work for every single row, giving us 9 stitches in each row until we get a total of 50 rows, and this is going to be creating the brim portion of our hat. So I'm going to go ahead and go off camera to make all 50 rows, and then I will come back and go to the next step with you guys. Okie dokie, after you do your 50 rows of your brim, it's time to turn it into a brim, because right now it's just a rectangle. So to make this your brim, we're going to fold it in half and then insert our hook into the first stitch of the last row, and then insert our hook into the first stitch of the first row, and we're going to place a slip stitch. So we're just going to grab our yarn and pull through all the loops on our hook. That's 1. We're going to do that all the way down, giving us a total of 9 slip stitches. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, making sure to go through both sides of the beanie, 8, and that will connect it into a lovely circle. Then I just like to pop that on, flip that over like that, chain 1, and now I'm going to show you what we got. This is the brim of our little beanie. We're going to flip it right side out now. So the seam that we just made is on the inside. We are looking at the right side of our beanie. Sometimes the Brava yarn makes a smaller piece than the I Love This yarn does. This one was made with I Love This yarn, but it's also been worn for 2 years, so it's a little old and stretched. So you might want to do a little test swatch before you make your beanie with Brava versus I Love This yarn. Depending upon what yarn you're used to using, that's totally up to you. The beanie will still be made the same way. Doesn't matter which worsted weight yarn you use. Okay, now we are going to do row 1 in our body, and that row is just a row of single crochets, and we will do 5 increases for this row. So this row will have a total of 55 single crochets all the way around. We will be making our own places for our hooks to go. It is in the raw side of our work, and I just like to space out my 5 single crochet increases around the brim in different spots, just so they're not all packed up next to each other. An increase is just 2 single crochets in the same stitches. Do this all the way around until you have 55 single crochets, and then we will get ready for round 2, which is our first row, not round, which is our first row of puff stitches coming up. So after we finish our single crochets, we'll come back for some puff stitches. Okay, after we get our 55 single crochet stitches all the way around the brim, I'm going to join into the top of my first single crochet and chain 1. Now we are going to get ready for our row 2 of our body of our beanie, which is the first row of puff stitches. So we're going to put our first puff stitch right here in that same space that our yarn is coming out of for our chain 1. So our first puff stitch is going to go right here. To do a puff stitch, you're going to yarn over, insert your hook into the stitch, grab your yarn and pull up a loop. That's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then you're going to yarn over, pull through all the loops on your hook to complete your puff stitch, yarn over. You do like a chain 1 at the end of each one to hold it and keep it secure so it doesn't unravel. Then we're going to skip this next stitch right here. We're not going to put anything there, and we're going to place a puff stitch over here in the third space. So yarn over, there we go, 2, 3, and 4. Yarn over, pull through all the loops on your hook and chain 1. I'm going to continue to place 1 puff stitch in every other space all the way around, giving me a total of 28 puff stitches in the row. Then I will join into the top of my first puff stitch, chain 1, and get ready for row 2. We will not be turning our work. We'll go in the same direction every time, looking at the right side of our beanie. So after I get to the end of this row, I will show you how to join in chain 1 and get ready for row 2. It's a tiny bit different than row 1, but it's very, very similar, so we will do that in just a second. Okay, now that I'm all the way back around, I double checked and I have 28 puff stitches all the way around. I'm going to join into the top of the first puff stitch, chain 1. Okay, now for row 2, our first puff stitch is going to stretch all the way over here. So we're going to go over the top of this puff stitch here and put our first one all the way over there in the first chain 1 gap created from when we were working our row 2, which was our first row of puff stitches. So I'm just going to yarn over and stretch my hook all the way over here to this gap, go right into the gap. I don't have to go into the stitch, just go into the gap and place your puff stitch there. Chain 1 to secure, and we're going to continue to puff stitch in each chain gap all the way around, giving us again a total of 28 puff stitches in the row. Come back to the beginning, join into the top, and chain 1 to get ready for row 3. Okie dokie, I just finished row 3, which is my second row of puff stitches. I know that's super frustrating that the first row is actually single crochets, but this is row 3 of the body. I'm going to join into the top of my chain 1 right here. So that's where I'm going to join. Not in the top of my puff stitch, but in the top right there in that chain up space. And then I'm going to chain 1. For row 3, our first puff stitch is going to go right here in that same space where our chain up 1 is coming from. So that's where we're going to place our first puff stitch, chain 1, and then 1 time in each gap all the way around, again for a total of 28 puff stitches in the row. So 2, 4, 6, those rows will start right up next to your chain, and then 3, 5, 7, those rows will start in the first chain gap. So you're going to alternate where your very first puff stitch goes. This is going to give us that nice straight seam up the back of our beanie right there. If you don't do this, your seam will go whoop. So this is how we get that nice straight seam up the back that blends in nicely with our puff stitches. So I'm going to do rows 3 through 7. I'm going to go ahead and do 3 through 7 off camera. You're just going to keep repeating the same thing and alternating back and forth where you put your first puff stitch. So this row 4, I'm going to do rows 4 through 7 off camera. It's exactly the same. You just keep rotating, keep alternating where you put your first stitch. This one was right up next to my chain 1, so then I will join into the top of my puff stitch and chain 1 again for the next row, and my first stitch will go all the way over here into this chain space gap. So I'm hoping that makes sense for you guys. I'm going to do all of this off camera. If you need a little bit more help doing each row, you can check out the other sizes of this same hat. This is my Claire beanie, which is my most popular pattern that I released in 2016. So it's been around for a while. If you need some more, if this is your first time finding my channel or seeing any of my patterns and you need some more guidance for this pattern, I go over in explicit detail in the Claire bun beanie video, where I turned this into a bun beanie instead of a finished hat that you can make a pumpkin. And then I also have finished hat sizes from 0 months all the way up to toddler. So everything is made the same, just the numbers are a little bit different, but the alternating where you start and stuff like that is the same in all of the rows, so in all of the sizes. So if you need to check those out, they are available on this channel, and I will link them in the description of this video as well. Okay, I just finished row 8. I'm pretty sure I said rows 4 through 7. I get confused because there's 7 rows of puff stitches, but 8 rows completely so far in our body. So this is rows 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Going to join into the top of my first stitch and chain 1, and you can see I alternated back and forth where my first puff stitch went. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to get that nice straight line up the back. Now we are going to start our decreases. Okay, for row 9 we are going to start by putting a puff stitch all the way over here in the first chain 1 gap that was created in row 8. Then we are going to puff stitch decrease over these 2 gaps. So we're going to take these 2 gaps and make them into 1 puff stitch instead of 2. So we're going to yarn over, insert our hook under the first gap, pull up a loop, 1, 2, do it 3 times instead of 4, and then we're going to yarn over and do it 3 times in this hole. So 1, 2, 3. Then we have all these loops on our hook. We're going to yarn over, pull through all of them for our decrease, and then we're going to chain 1 to hold that puppy in place. Now we are going to puff stitch 1 time in the next 3 chain 1 gaps. That's 3. Now we're going to decrease over the next 2 chain 1 gaps. So 3 in the first hole, 3, and then yarn over, 3 in the second hole, 3, yarn over, pull through all those loops on your hook, and then chain 1 to secure. I'm going to continue doing this all the way around. It's going to go 3 puff stitches, then a puff stitch decrease, and then when I get back to the beginning of the row, I will show you how to finish it out. So 1, 2, 3, then a decrease. I'm just going to keep repeating that, 1, 2, 3, then a decrease, and I will be right back. Okay, I just finished my 3 puff stitches, and all I have left is the decrease over these last 2 chain 1 gaps here in the row. Two and 3. That finishes row 9. Join into the top of my chain 1 right here, and then chain 1. For row 10, we're going to go puff stitch, puff stitch, puff stitch to get us started. So I'll do those first. So put a puff stitch in each of the first 3 chain 1 gaps. The first one goes right up next to your chain up one. Now we're going to puff stitch decrease over the next 2 chain 1 gaps. And that is going to start our repeat for the row. We're going to go puff stitch, puff stitch, puff stitch decrease. So the last row there was 3 puffs in between the decreases. In row 10, let me just double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yes, in row 10, we're going to do 2 puff stitches between every decrease. So we are just rounding out the top of our beanie to be head shape instead of straight like a tube. So I'm going to repeat that pattern. Puff stitch, puff stitch, puff stitch, decrease, all the way around until I get back to the beginning, and then we will get ready for round 11. Okay, I'm coming up to the end of row 10. I just did my puff stitch decrease, and the pattern tells me I need to do puff stitch according to my repeat. So there's my first puff stitch. There's no room for another puff stitch, so we are just going to end with 1 puff stitch. Join into the top of our first and chain 1. Okay, for row 11, we are going to start by putting our first puff stitch all the way over here in the first chain 1 gap created in row 10. So I'm going to go all the way over there for my first puff stitch, chain 1, and then I'm going to puff stitch decrease over these next 2 chain 1 gaps. 1, 2, 3, pull through all those and chain to secure. That is our repeat for this row. 1 puff, 1 puff decrease, 1 puff, 1 puff decrease. We're going to do that all the way around. 1 puff, 1 puff decrease. I'm just going to do this whole row with you guys on camera because it's not going to take very long. And then we can get ready for our stem and our vine coming up very soon. 1 puff, 1 puff decrease. Okay. Okay, we're almost to the very end. I'm going to put a puff stitch right here as per the repeat. Chain 1. Now with the repeat it says I should end on a decrease, but I don't have room for a decrease, so I'm just going to put 1 more puff stitch right there in that hole to end that row. Now I'm going to join into the top of my chain, but I'm not going to use my peach, aka orange yarn. I'm going to grab my brown stem colored yarn instead. So I'm going to pull this yarn through like that instead of the peach, and then I'm going to chain 1 to secure. I will cut my peach in just a moment, but I'm going to go ahead and do this row first. So for this row, we're just going to puff stitch decrease all the way around. So there will be no puff stitches in between our decreases for this round. That's 1. That's 2. That's 3. Four. We are almost done. 5. Last one. Okay, and join into the top of our chain up right there. It's actually, I think, one of the puff stitches. I'm not sure, but we're going to join right there. And chain 1. Now for row 13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I'm going to go ahead and cut my peach colored yarn so I can hide those tails down in the inside of my beanie, and they will be out of my way. Now for row 13, we're just going to single crochet 1 time in each stitch all the way around, giving us a total of 12 single crochets in the row. So that's 3, 4, and then you actually go into the chain for these, not under it. I mean, it probably doesn't make that much of a difference because your stem is going to cover this up anyway, but that's how I do it. If you want to replicate exactly, I put my stitch in the chain, not in the chain gap. Alrighty, we have 12 single crochet stitches. Join into the top of our first single crochet. And then I'm going to tie off, leaving a decently sized tail for sewing up our little hole up here. So it's probably like 18 inches of a tail. And now we can, this is the main part of our beanie. She's pretty much done. We're going to close up this hole right here so she's completely clinched. Then we're going to make our stem and our vines and attach them. So to close up the hole, we're going to use our tapestry needle. And I think this is called the magic close or invisible close. I'm not sure, but this is how I do it. You insert your hook under the front loop of the first stitch, just the front loop. Then you're going to whip your needle around and pick up the front loop of the second stitch. Rip your needle, pick up the front loop of the third stitch, and I'm just picking up front loops. Went ahead and grabbed the fourth one. Then I'm going to pull my needle all the way through, then continue around picking up front loops only, whipping around, grabbing the next front loop, then pull my needle until I have all 12 stitches. And then when I pull it nice and tight, it will magically close and be beautiful. Here we go. The magic moment. Okay, and then I just like to run my needle around those stitches one more time, just under where I just went, basically, to help it stay nice and tight and closed so there is no hole at the top of our beanie. For all of my new folks that this is your first time coming across my channel, I do have the messy bun beanie version of this hat, which is what started it all for me here at A Crafty Concept. So if you've not checked out that pattern, I will link it in the description for you below. The messy bun style comes in adult and child sizes, but you could easily modify the toddler size closed version if you wanted to make a toddler size messy bun beanie. Okay, after my hole is nice and closed, I'm going to pop this tail onto the inside of my beanie, and I can sew in all of my tails right here. I will do that off camera because I do this in every single one of my videos. If you need help showing how to sew in tails, I'm going to do it off camera, and then I'm going to come back and we are going to make our stem. Okay, now that we have the body of our pumpkin beanie all ready to go with our tails sewn in and whatnot, it is time to make our tiny little stem to go on top. We are going to be using our H hook still and our brown worsted weight yarn. We are going to start with a magic circle. So what you're going to do is wrap your yarn around your fingers and then pinch it right there to make an X, and pinch it with your thumb. Insert your hook into the loop you just made, grab your yarn and pull up a loop. Then I do a little bit of readjusting here, and I'm going to chain one to hold everything secure, and then I'm going to place 6 single crochets into the center of my magic circle. So right into the center, that's 1, 2, 3, ignore my puppy's paw prints on the hardwood, 5, 6. Then we're going to pull our tail and watch the magic happen right before your eyes. The stem is made by working in the round, so we will not be joining and chaining up after each row. We will just continue going about our business. So for round 2, we're going to increase 1 time in each stitch all the way around, giving us a total of 12 stitches in the round. So I'm just going to start by putting my hook right into the top of that first stitch from round 1 for an increase. And that's just 2 single crochet stitches in the exact same spot. Do that 5 more times for a total of 6, giving us a total of 12 stitches in the round. So that's my third repeat. 4, 5, and 6. For rounds 3 through 7, so 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, the next 5 rounds, we're just going to single crochet 1 time in each stitch all the way around. So I will not be using a stitch marker, and I will just be counting till 12. But if you are used to using stitch markers or prefer them, you are welcome to use them here. Pretty sure that's 12. It was hard to count and talk at the same time. But continue to single crochet 1 time in each stitch around until you have a total of 7 rounds. Just counting up to 12 for each round or using a stitch marker. I will come back after my 7 rounds and we will attach this guy to our hat. And here is my finished pumpkin stem. I went ahead and sewed in my first tail and then clipped it off and hid it into the inside of my stem. Leave a long tail for attaching your stem to the top of your hat. And I'm going to put a little bit of polyfill into the center of my stem just to give it some shape. Not a lot at all. Now we're going to attach our stem to the top of our pumpkin hat, like this. If you don't like the big stem, you can go down a hook size. This is what it looks like on the beanie. But if you would rather it be a skinny little stem, you can use a different hook size and follow the same pattern. So I'm going to find my straight seam up the back and stick it in the back center so I know where it's at. Flip her over to the front And now I'm going to kind of eyeball where I want my stem to go, and it's just going to be centered on this space here that we created. So that's going to go right there, and then I'm going to whip stitch it on with my tapestry needle. So I'm just going to put my tail on my tapestry needle here. And then I'm going to make my first stitch. Make sure it's in the right spot, just sitting on top, and you can move it around as you go. And then go into the hat, Lord have mercy, into the hat, and then back up through the beanie. The stem. This is a little hard to do on camera. So just like this, into the hat, and then back out the stem. And then pull it tight so it's nice and snug on top of your beanie. And I'm going to do that all the way around. This would be much easier if it was like on a head or something to do on camera. So into the beanie, you can go either into this part of the stitch or even all the way over here to the tops of your puffs. It really doesn't matter. What matters is that it's like centered around, so whatever you do, be consistent. And it should be 12 whip stitches because there was 12 single crochets in our stem rows. Pretty simple stuff. You could add one of these little stems probably to any of your favorite beanie patterns. You could just modify by making it orange. You don't even have to put the brown base at the top if you don't want to. You could just put the brown stem on top of the orange hat and that would look just fine. I just like adding the little extra bit for this one, but you absolutely don't have to do that. So you could use this stem, put it on any of your favorite knit or crochet beanie patterns, and then or even store-bought beanies if you wanted to. Like if you wanted to make a whole bunch of pumpkin hats for, like, if you have a whole bunch of kids and you want them all to match and you need them in a hurry and you don't want to make 7 pumpkin hats in the middle of the night, you can go buy some cheap store-bought, like the cheaper ones at Walmart, and just crochet and attach little stems to them, and boom, you got yourself some pumpkin hats. Stems and vines. It would be super easy. That would also be really cute if you wanted to make some gifts for your kids' classmates. They could all have little pumpkin hats. That would be adorable. Okay, once we get our stem completely attached all the way around back to the beginning, we can put our tail on the inside of our beanie like so. Pull it on in. And now we are ready to make and attach our vine. I will sew this guy in off camera because that's boring. And we will make our vine next. Little pumpkin stem. Okay, to make our vine, we're going to start by leaving a decently sized tail. Not teeny tiny, but not extra long either. Making a slip knot and chaining 20. This stem will be about 4.5 inches long. If you want your stem longer or shorter, you will just adjust the number of chains that you put in your starting chain. And if you want it thinner, you can use half double crochet stitches or single crochet stitches instead of double crochet stitches that we will be using here. So we are going to skip 2 stitches, 1, 2, and we're going to place a double crochet stitch right here. So I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook into the 3rd chain from my hook, grab my yarn, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. That is 1. That is 1 double crochet. We're going to put 2 more double crochets into that same spot for 3 double crochets total. We are going to continue putting 3 double crochets in each of the 20, or there'll be 18 now because we skipped 2. So putting 3 double crochets in each of the 18 stitches left in our chain, giving us a total of 54 double crochet stitches for our vine. So like I said, if you want it to be skinnier, you can do single crochet or half double crochet, and if you want it to be longer or shorter, you will just adjust how many starting chains you start with. So I'm going to continue putting my 3 double crochets in each stitch. This is going to give it a very lovely coil looking effect, and then we will attach it to our beanie. Look at that, it looks like a little rosebud. Okay, putting in my last 2 double crochets in the last spot for a total of 3, giving me a total of 54 double crochets in my entire cute little vine. Then I'm going to cut my yarn, leaving a decent sized tail, and pull through to tie off. Now we are going to attach our little vine onto our pumpkin hat. Find the back, find the front. Now this guy is going to go right up next to, like this, or you can do it like this if you choose. You can either have it curling towards the back or curling towards the front, or you can even go on the opposite side if you want to. I think I like mine like this, kind of leaning back that way, but you can like move it around. So I'm going to do mine like this, where the back of my double crochet stitches is the part that's facing up, and then all I'm going to do is grab my crochet hook and go inside the hat and pop up through the bottom like this, like so, okay, and grab this tail and pull it into the inside, and then scooch over just a smidgen, pop up again, and grab the second tail and pull it into the inside of my beanie. Now I'm going to tie these nice and secure inside the beanie. Then I'm going to look at it and see how it looks on the inside, on the outside. Okay. Oh, that looks kind of cool. That has like a little twisted. I like this. That looks cool because that's the front of my beanie. I like this. I like how it is. I like how it's attached. So I'm just going to knot this again to make sure it does not come undone. And then I'm just going to snip my tails. But if you want to, you can secure your vine by running a few stitches up and down into your hat with your tapestry needle. But I think that is fine, and I'm going to go ahead and just clip it off because I'm lazy and I'm not giving this to nobody because it's a peach pumpkin. But if I was selling it or gifting it, I would go ahead and sew in those tails nice and secure. Since I'm not, I will not. And that completes our little pumpkin hat. Super cute, way cute in the color orange, or any shade of orange really. I've got a ton of pictures of my daughter wearing this hat that I will play for you guys in a little slideshow while I chit-chat with you here. I do want to show you that you can get these little pumpkin tags from my friend Kathy at Kathy's Cozies on Instagram or Etsy, and you can add them to your beanie. Let me show you what it would look like. She sent me these as a gift, and I love them. They come in different sizes, but if you end up selling your pumpkin beanies and you want to get some leaf tags with your logo or your business name on it, you could do that and attach it to your beanies like this, or you can kind of hide it under the vine a little bit like that. Totally up to you. You can also do different colored ones. This one's more gray. She's got like 10 different colors she can do. And without the logo, if you aren't selling as a business, or if you just want to do a leaf tag up here and then a logo tag down here like I did on this one. This wooden tag came from All This Wood on Etsy. So I will link both of those shops for you guys below if you want to add a little bit of festiveness to your beanie. Those options are available to you. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today, watching this video and making your own pumpkin hats. I cannot wait to see them. You can tag me on Instagram at A Crafty Concept. I try to like and or comment on every single picture I am tagged in. So those make my absolute day. So if you tag me on Instagram, I would love to see your finished pumpkin hats. Also, if you like this video and would like more free crochet patterns, you can go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I also post a lot of educational videos about growing your crochet business, helping crocheters start and grow crochet businesses. Doing what they love is my passion. That's what I do here at A Crafty Concept. So take a look around on my YouTube channel if you haven't already. I've got some videos about opening Etsy shops. I've got some videos about branding, so check those out and see if any of them tickle your fancy. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. However you can get a hold of me. Instagram's probably the fastest, and I am again at A Crafty Concept. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful fall season and have fun making all of these cute pumpkin beanies. I will see you in the next video.